Hello, folks. This is David Hurley of EasyChessTips.com talking to you about a quite disastrous game I played in spite of the early promise, in which I was black. I was playing over the board last week against my regular partner, and he opened with e4, as you can see on the screen, and I proceeded to play with the trusty French defence. Now, I lost this game, but it is not because of the French defence, it's because of my appalling set of oversights. When I got home late that night, I felt, and both of us felt, that I had lost because my partner was getting stronger as a player, and that is true. He's more difficult to beat as the weeks go by and the months go by. In fact, I think this is the second game in a row that I have lost. But when I looked at the game and put it through Lichess, I found, here I am as black, I found blunder and oversight after blunder and oversight. It's really more a case of oversights. There wasn't some crazy blunder where I let my queen go get taken by a bishop or something like that, but there was oversight after oversight after oversight. And the crazy thing about this game is that I enter the middle game in an advantageous, a small but significant advantage, with a small but significant advantage. But these oversights, I kind of recover from each one until it just gets too much. Eventually, the whole thing was thrown away. And so let's have a look at how the game developed and what those oversights were. Now, there is a bit of a pattern to our games at the moment. My opponent has taken to opening with e4 and is beginning to see some good results from that opening. And I guess he anticipates that I will answer with the French defence. But even so, I feel that the French defence is such a solid opening against e4 that I don't mind if he does some prep to counter the French defence. It's just appalling when I play it so badly. Here are the opening moves. I should just say that our games, we each have 30 minutes on the clock with no increment. So time is just ticking down. So if you delay before the middle game, you don't get too much time to think. However, on the other hand, let's face it, it's not blitz either. So e4, e6, d4, d5, knight c3, knight to f6, inviting the advance of the e-pawn. However, we get this move here, bishop to d3. Now, speaking about these games going according to certain patterns, in the last couple of games where I have been black, we've had McCutcheon-style defense situations, which involves the early movement of this bishop out here, pinning the knight to the queen. You can see here it hasn't happened. We have bishop to d3 instead. But I thought I would see what happens if I try to induce it by doing the typical counter move to white's bishop to g5 move here. This is what brings on the McCutcheon defense. So the question I was asking myself is, would my opponent advance the bishop up here to g5? And the answer to that is yes, he would, and he did. So then we have h6, the bishop takes the knight, the queen takes the knight. And then this is where the first real big oversight kicks in on my part, because the queen comes out to f3. You can see Lichess is giving me a significant, small but significant advantage in this setup. And the reason is that there is this unguarded pawn in the middle. And the queen can simply nobble the pawn, and then we can get a nice little check in here with the bishop against bishop, forking the king and the rook. And when the pawn takes, the queen can pick up another pawn and is still forking the bishop and the king. So it all looks very promising if you would only use your eyes. I didn't, however. I didn't particularly want to trade off queens, which is of course what I was focused on over here. So this is the oversight. I moved my queen back, and you can see all my advantage disappears with that move. So, however, all is not lost by this stage at all. We then have the advance of the e-pawn. And instead of, what do I do next? In fact, I follow that recommended move. I go c5, the knight comes out, and here I make another oversight, because you can see that Lichess is rightly recommending that we advance the pawn here, because when we attack the bishop has nowhere to go. It has no safe home. And so I can pick up a nice little bishop, and this is a nice strong advantage for me. I'll have a very good setup, and I will be material ahead. Did I notice this? No, it was my second oversight of the game. What did I do instead? I took the pawn. Now I still have a small advantage, it's not the end of the world, and in this situation here, my queen comes in, and this move delivers the advantage back to me. So will I take advantage of the third opportunity to build an advantage? Queen to g4, and I do actually follow through with the recommended moves here, picking up a pawn. So I'm now ahead in material, and the position is looking quite nice. King to e2. The recommended move here is to castle. Now, I avoided castling on the king's side. In fact, I never ended up not castling at all, which was highly contributory to my downfall. Again, the queen here looks more dangerous than she is, eyeing up this pawn. It's perfectly safe, as Lichess shows us, to castle on the king's side, even though it puts the king in front of the queen here. This is an overblown threat. There is not much to it if we keep our nerve. Yes, indeed, if we keep our nerve. But we were worried about the queen, and that is myself in conference with the king over here, advanced to g5, advanced the pawn to g5. So that is missing the opportunity to castle into some safety. But all is still not lost for me. It seems that white is determined for that I should maintain the advantage against my best efforts to throw it away. This move here by white shows that he has completely overlooked another way for black to gain a very nice material advantage here. And in fact, I also overlooked this one on a couple of occasions. The little advance of the h-pawn here attacking the queen. Now, let's have a look at this. The thing you may notice is that this pawn here is undefended if this pawn advances. The queen could just pick it up for no apparent comeback. Oh, but wait a minute. The queen is doing an important job defending this knight. And so the whole purpose of the advance of this pawn here, well, the ploy, which will be obvious to an advanced player, is to induce the queen to grab an apparently free pawn, allowing my queen to pick up the knight over here, putting white in a very strong material disadvantage. Instead, I move the opposite pawn, completely wrong pawn. I've got my eye on this knight coming in here. One moment. I've got my eye on the knight coming in here and then jumping over here and forking the king and the rook. And so I seek to prevent that by advancing my pawn up here to shove, to restrict the number of squares in my half of the board that the knight can go to. But in worrying about the knight, I missed the point that I could simply threaten to nobble the knight with this nice little double move here. So I go a6. We then have rook to b3. I then move my queen up to c7. And we then have the second rook coming in, doubling the rooks on the b file. And here I am gaining another advantage because that wretched pawn there is still unprotected. And so I picked it up. Finally, I picked up the pawn. And then that forces the king to retreat to f1. So there again is my advantage back. All is well. And we still have this option of advancing the pawn in order to cause the queen to retreat. In fact, this time the queen would simply have to retreat, and down goes the knight. Did I see it? Did I heck? Determined to fritter away the advantage, I retreat my queen to c7. We then get the rook coming to e1. Now I had my eye on this move here, but in this case I was worried about the advance of this pawn here to advance to g3, possibly trapping my queen. And time was running out on the clock, so I didn't do the recommended move here. Instead, this is what begins to lose the game. I break up my pawn structure thinking that I can advance through the center. I know it's risky. My king still hasn't castled, but this is how it plays out. And you can see this is the final and complete loss of advantage, and giving away the advantage, giving it right over to white. I knew it was very risky. I knew it was risky. But equality is regained. It looks as if I'm nicely forking the queen and the bishop. The trouble is that my king is perched in the center where it's been stuck there all game because I have steadfastly refused to take it. We had this nice boomerang move by the rook. The rook is pinning the pawn to the king. So from this pin we get bishop takes, pawn takes. It's now a losing game. Check, and I can't even move in the right direction to 0 safety. This is now the end of the game. And that's it there. Even that last move, it's almost as if I was determined to lose this game before. I was kind of hoping to win on time, but there was no time. The game was lost. Until next time, when I hope my fortunes and my insights have improved, that's all from me, David Hurley of EasyChessTips.com, your pub chess bluffer.